Welcome to Move the Sticks. I am Bucky Brooks, and that is my man, my main man, Lance Zierlein, holding it down. What's up, H-Town's finest?
This and that. We'll find out. We'll find out here. I got a basketball team out of it. I got a baseball team in shambles compared to where we used to be, Buckets.
Bring Dusty back.
I need to get these texts away. Bring Dusty back, indeed. Where's do we have a mini camp going on here? Can we get some football going on in this city?
I'm actually glad that you brought that up, and we're going to talk about this on It's Time for Hot or Not, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. And Lance, I got to bring this up, man. I'm sitting around over the weekend. I'm reading this article on C.J Stroud. These executives are weighing in on what the Texans should do. And because you're close to the fire, what is your take on C.J Stroud, the Houston Texans, and what the future looks like for my man in H-Town?
It's interesting. I don't know if you saw the picture that ESPN had. I think it was ESPN had a picture of him working out, and so the big thing in Houston was he cut the braids.
Cut the braids off.
Cut them off. Yep. Yeah, it had to go. So he went, and I'm like, okay, it's a rebrand. We're in the middle of a rebrand. Like, okay, you got to rebrand every once in a while. Anyways, he's had that since high school, college. It's good. We're going to do something new. What I didn't know, and what I'm very happy to see, is it also involves he slimmed down. You can see in his face, like he's leaned down. They showed him he was lifting, getting a little pump in. He's getting a little pump in those tries. Those tries are starting to pop a little bit. What it shows you is C.J. Stroud, and we've always known this. C.J. loves ball. He loves ball. It's important to him. His performance was not good in the playoffs last year. It was bad. His performance over the last 2 years have not been the jump that people expected after a really good rookie season where he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And so the question in Houston that we've kicked around is, has really been about what's going to happen when Will Anderson gets paid, which has happened. Azeez Al-Shaair just got paid. Nico Collins, like they're filling up the whole roster with payments and extensions. And now you picked up the fifth-year option on CJ, but you can't give him a new contract yet. Number one, his agent David Mulgeta would be silly to ask for top of the food chain money after what CJ did. He has no leverage right now, and the Texans would be. I think the Texans, do they want to give him a guaranteed contract worth $180 million guaranteed, which is what Mulgeta is going to shoot for that number or higher? Would you want to do that on the strength of what just happened? Probably not. So you need to see him play in the fourth year. You picked up fifth-year option, which was never in doubt. Mm-hmm. And CJ, I think fans get so caught up in, what's the bag going to look like? How much money is he going to get? We didn't used to talk about that, Buck. You remember we used to just talk about if a guy was winning, if he was what he was going to do to make his team. These guys are not going to let you hold their money. I promise you. You cannot hold any of these guys' money. I don't know why people get so caught up in a guy getting this much or not getting this much. It's like, for me, I just want to see how you're going to play, because the money's going to come for you and you're going to do what you do with your money. It's going to help your family. And it comes with being a pro athlete. So I don't get caught up in that. Just the idea of where you slot compared to others is interesting to me, because those numbers a lot of times are money that they may never spend, but it does show a certain relevance to where you are, which is going to lead to a turn in topics, the same topic, but I'm going to turn it here in a second. But let me say this. I love seeing CJ say, I got to do something. It's not good enough. And that's what you want from your quarterback. You want him to you want that from your best players, always trying to be the best they can be. And CJ is going all in, saying, I'm going to change body type. I'm going to do things I've never done this offseason. I got to get right because it's not good enough what's happened. That's what you want your quarterback to feel like. And I've never felt that he's a complacent. I never thought he was. That's not who he is. He loves ball and he wants to be the best he can be. Nick Casero's done a good job, and D'Amico Ryans of putting offensive linemen in that are run blockers. They got David Montgomery. They drafted well with Caden McDonald and Keelan Rutledge. So they drafted the trenches and basically said, we're going to stick to whipping ass in the trenches on defense, but we're going to try to get nasty on the offensive trenches as well. And if you run the ball well, you take some pressure off CJ, and CJ is more likely to succeed if he's not so far behind the sticks. If he is able to run off play action, if you're able to open up the playbook because it's 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 7. There's a few more plays at your disposal. I think all of that is good. But with all that said, you got to show up in the postseason. Like Jeff Bagwell and Craig Biggio are loved in this city, but people remember George Springer and Carlos Correa and Altuve and guys who came through in the clutch and won championships with clutch play, as opposed to the guys who couldn't hit the Braves and they were out. You know what I'm saying? James Harden had love, but James is also, there's a term for James known elimination James. When it's elimination game,
oh man, double thumbs down.
Yeah. And so now you look at C.J. Stroud, and that Rookie of the Year is nice, but what did you do in the postseason? And so C.J. really needs to play well, and if he plays well this year, and the Texans go deep, let's just even AFC Championship game, the big payday's coming. We already know that. It's just a matter of time. So, and then they'll have to figure out how they manage the salary cap when that happens, because that is going to legitimately, cause some shuffling. But the fans down here are not 100% behind CJ. They need CJ to give them something to cheer for, and that means you got to play at a certain level in the postseason.
Yeah, he certainly has to take his game up a notch. And I will say this: the one things I've always admired from CJ is, since knowing him as a high schooler, he has always been able to take his game up a notch on the biggest and brightest stages. He has always kind of come through and delivered. Has some issues in this postseason that I would say it was troubling just because it looked so bad. Kept slinging it, but you could tell he was throwing without confidence. What I wanted from him now, second year in the system, mastery of the system. Now, how do we push it? How do we push the envelope a little bit to get to where we need to be aggressively, while also learning from those experiences and knowing when to dial it back? He still has a lot of room to grow into that. But I'll say this, having looked at Bryce Young's career arc, and first they love you, then they hate you, then they love you again. He's back on the upkeep with the love you. I think with CJ, very similar. It's kind of like the hero's arc where you start at the top, he had a lot of success right away. Naturally, it's going to crater, and now he's trying to dig himself out. I think when he gets to the other side of it, we can see the best version of him, but it may take us a while to get to the other side of the storm that he's in.
Bucky, you know this, and talking to teams about, just trying to tighten up my process and learn what's important to teams from an evaluation standpoint over the years. I had a conversation with a guy named Brian Decker, who used to be at the Colts. He was with the Browns, Colts, and I think right now he's with the Panthers, as a matter of fact. And he was, I can't remember what special units he was in. And we talked a lot about, he was a specialist for interrogation and interviews. And I got to talk for him for about an hour and a half, and he talked about a variety of, hey, I'd ask him, what's it like when you have, players who come from military backgrounds? And that's got to be a big advantage. He said, not always, because sometimes you have discipline imposed on you and you don't create, self-create your own discipline. Just different things I'd never thought of. It was one of the best conversations I've ever had. But one of the things he talked about was adversity. And this is something when you guys, scouts, understand this. Show me a player who's show me a person who's overcome adversity, and I'll show you somebody who's likely to overcome adversity in the future because they have coping mechanisms, they have the skill sets, they have a history of it. Show me someone who's never gone through adversity. You don't know what you're getting. I mean, maybe they'll handle it okay, but you don't know what you're getting. And Brian talked about how he would empower players. I said, how do you get them to tell you things that they don't want to tell you, that maybe they find embarrassing about something in their background or something that's family related, or maybe it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily reflect on them, but maybe they don't want it to reflect poorly on them. He said, would you just let them know that, great people have come through adverse situations and overcome it? And, tell me about some adversity that you've gone through. And he said, then they open up when they realize it's a badge of honor that they have overcome adversity. CJ had personal adversity in his life that he has had to overcome, and that's a positive. It shows mental toughness and fortitude and character. This is a different level. This is a professional adversity he's facing, and it humbles you and it resets you. And we see CJ resetting. It's going to harden you a little bit. But one of two things can happen. Either it's going to crumble, he'll crumble beneath the pressure of what's coming, or it will make him tougher. It will make him more calloused, and it will create a level of aptitude in the face of adversity that can lead him towards greatness. Like, there's nothing wrong with adversity. It's an opportunity. And that's what I think CJ's in the midst of. It's an opportunity. It can go poorly for him, or if his mind is right and the confidence is back, because the body language wasn't always great last year, Bucky. I think the confidence really was shaken.
Yes.
You see it in the footwork, you see it in the internal clock is off. If they can get him back to being right and being confident in, I'm the best player on this field, if you can get that mentality back, he'll be fine. But there's no guarantee, but it's an opportunity. And I think this adversity gives us a chance to see if he comes out on the other side, Bucky, it could be the best thing that ever happened to him in the long run.
It absolutely will. And this is a time where I always use a quote that my dad gave me, and I use it when I talk to young people all the time. And I just got cut by the Kansas City Chiefs. It may have been the third or fourth time that I've been cut. And he said, you cannot be made of steel until you try by fire. And for CJ and for others, they have to go through these storms to be prepared for what's on the horizon. So when we talk about Houston, because you're down there, man, the next step for the Houston Texans is to play championship caliber ball, whether that is AFC championship game or the Super Bowl. That's the next step. And you can't be ready for that until you vanquish some of these demons that have kind of popped up, particularly the way that it looked against the Patriots. Here's the challenge. You can't deal with playoff pressure until you get back to the playoffs. And so he has to be able to run that entire marathon and still have enough. He may want to solicit your wife for some advice. He may want to figure out, okay, how do I run these 26.2, but not burn up all the gas before I get to the 25th mile?
Yeah, my wife's a marathon runner, she had to retire because of the knee, but she just started she started later in life, really, and just went through, and it was the mental toughness that she's been running 4 marathons with a bone-on-bone knee condition. And the only way you can do that is with the level of toughness where you forget that the pain you're in and you go somewhere else with your mind. And, it's funny, and she's not a pro athlete or anything like that. She didn't come up as an athlete, but it just speaks to there's a certain level of mental toughness where you have to, like, you're right. There is, and for me, we just went through it with the Rockets. You lost in Game 7 to the Golden State Warriors last year, so everything was a buildup, and we were just waiting until the postseason, and then they fell short in the postseason again. It's the same thing with the Texans. Well, fans here will enjoy watching Texans games, but it's all just going to be we're just waiting until the postseason and how CJ plays in the postseason. Really, that's what it is. We want to see how CJ plays in the postseason.
And there'll be this arc where they love him and all that, but then be like, yeah, but what about the playoffs? Yeah, but what about the playoffs? And that pressure that he is going to feel, internal and external, is going to be great. And how he manages those emotions are going to be critical. A lot of pressure on C.J. Stroud, not only to get the Houston Texans over the hump, but he needs to play well to get paid. That was this week's Hot or Not segment, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. All right, Lance, you had something that we talked about before we jumped on there.
I want to flip the script.
You want to flip it on me.
Yeah, so you were talking about the second contract. C.J. Stroud is fourth year. You got a fifth year option coming up. Texans have decisions to make, right? There was a tweet I'll never forget. I was in a hotel room, and I can't remember if it was the Combine.
Yeah,
but if it was the Combine or if it was at the I think it was the Combine, where you made a comment like, at some point, is there going to be a time, especially with these contracts for quarterbacks doing what they're doing?
Yeah.
It's gone way higher from the time you sent this post. And you can correct me you can tighten this up. But it was basically, are we going to have a situation where teams start looking at quarterbacks and saying, we can't just automatically be ready to give them second contracts? We may have to start working through quarterbacks. I don't want to call it like running backs, but is there going to be a team that says, we don't think you're good enough for a second contract, so we're going to let you walk, and we're going to redraft it again if it's not there, and we're not going to just fall into the trap of giving somebody that we don't believe in a second deal.
Okay.
No one has the balls to do that so far, Bucky, but I'm waiting for the team to say, you can walk, We don't think you're good enough. We'll take the chance of being in quarterback purgatory and redraft a quarterback. Now, you caused a fuss when you brought that up originally.
Oh, Lance, it was bad now because this is what happens, right? When you try and be a good teammate on TV, sometimes it can bite you in the tail. And this was in the midst of Lamar Jackson trying to get paid. Justin Fields is coming out. And I made the suggestion, like, hey, if they can't get it done, maybe they should consider treating it like college and letting him graduate and bring in another one. Because in college, that's what you do. You have the big-time quarterback. At some point he graduates, you go and get another big-time quarterback behind him.
Right.
Now, we have not seen a team with, I would say, the courage to do that, because what we then do is we pay him and then we regret it immediately. Buyer's remorse.
Immediately.
Now we're mad and we're pissed off at the player, but the player's played exactly how he's been playing. But because we pay him, the expectations go up. And I think that's the danger when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. When you pay them, and particularly like people now look at the number. Oh my God, $50 million, he has to be able to carry the squad. But what you and I are saying is like, nah, that's the market. That's the going rate. But it doesn't mean that he is going to be what those initial guys that crossed that frontier, he may not be that. Because now we went from having 2 or 3 in that to now it's like 14 or 15 in the $50 million club. So it's not as special as it is. But when we hear it and we see those numbers, there's a level, there's an expectation of what is to come. And I'm going to say this, seeing it up close and personal with Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot of trepidation when Trevor Lawrence got his money. Whatever he got, like it was $52 million annually. And they paid him before it was kind of time to pay him. And the season this year started out shaky. Now, he finished with like 38 touchdowns and did his thing, but there was a lot of, oh my God, why did we pay him? Da-da-da. But then he's number 1 overall pick. If we don't pay him, who is going to be next? That is the challenge, because most teams aren't positioned enough to be like, oh yeah, man, we good. Like, yeah, we're not going to do that deal. We'll draft it. Because normally you either don't have the draft position, you don't have the capital, you have to draft the quarterback soon enough to kind of be in the stable and ready to go if he does walk. It is a challenge, but I just know we talk all the time about it being the most important position in ball, but yet we commit the fewest resources to the position. Why not? If it's that important, shouldn't we double down, triple down to make sure that we always have a quarterback? To me, it just makes sense to approach it like that.
I think it's a fascinating, if there were more good quarterbacks, it would be a real decision for teams. If you had more guys coming out right now that were legitimate quarterbacks that you felt were starting level quarterbacks, and this is a great example this year of expectations before the season, how they were not even close to being met by realistically, the play of quarterbacks in college football very disappointing this year relative to the expectations of some of the top quarterbacks. But to your point, it's not only the expectations that soar when you have $50+ million and soon it's going to be $60 million for these quarterbacks. It's twofold. It's twofold. In baseball, and baseball is uncapped, but in baseball, what we're seeing is the very best players are getting the very best money. But if you're not one of the very best players, you're getting shorter contracts and you're not getting the money that you want. The market has really said, we're only paying the very best players the long-term, $200 and $300 million guarantee. We're only paying the very best guys that. And some other good players have found that the market is kind of, it's not the same for them. Football is one of the only places where you don't even have to be a good quarterback. You can be an average to above average quarterback, and which is what I would say Trevor Lawrence was an average quarterback when he got paid. But they slot you in at, well, you're next up. Well, you're next up. I guess we have to pay that. In no other sport do they just say, I mean, in basketball to an extent, some of the max contracts, but football is still the only sport where you are truly saying, we know you're probably not worth the money that makes you the top 3 or 4 at your position, but we feel like we have to give it to you anyway because there's no other choice. And as you mentioned, there's immediate regret. And one of the reasons there's immediate regret is because if you don't start all of a sudden elevating your play into one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league, it really makes no sense with what's happening to your salary cap and the way you can maneuver for the rest of your roster. You're tied up. You're an anchor for the rest of your in terms of your ability to maneuver around the rest of your roster. And we all know when you have a rookie deal going on, that's why the Texans are in such a rush to try to win a championship, because they're still working off a rookie deal, and you've got opportunities to do so much more. Once you lock in all the contracts, like, you got to start letting some good players go. Some good players have to walk. That's just the way it is.
And that's why the quarterback has to match up. And it's funny, man, because I call it 21-1. 21 other positions have different priorities, different expectations when it comes to, hey, you got to earn it. We're going to bring people in all the time. You got to be ready to compete and fend it off. And then we have the one outlier, which is the quarterback, where we're so sensitive to the quarterback's feelings and needs and demands that we don't hold him to the same standard, even though he's eating the biggest piece of the pie. Like, that's the thing when it comes to it. It is a fascinating discussion. It is one that continues to boggle our minds, but it's one that I can't see changing in terms of the way people approach it. Like, as much as I would love people to be daring and bold, the one thing that happens is look at Minnesota. It got Kwesi fired. He moves on from Sam Darnold thinking that he has one in the holster in J.J. McCarthy. I mean, he didn't even make it to the end of the season. And they just had repaid. They just had re-signed Kwesi. So that is the thing. It sounds good. So now what you have is a bunch of decision makers like, I ain't going to put myself out there. I just re-sign what I got, and we'll deal with it on the back end, because Kwesi tried to do the right thing. They took the quarterback before they needed a quarterback. They had one in the holster. They were trying to get Daniel Jones and those things. They let Sam walk thinking J.J. McCarthy was ready, and he wasn't. And so it blew up in their face.
As Brian Billick once told me at a group full of people, I think it was at NFL Films, he said, as soon as you draft a quarterback in the first round, they turn the hourglass over on your job. If you don't get them developed by the time the sand trickles out, and the sand moves at different paces for different coaches and different general managers, once you draft that quarterback in the first round, everyone's job is on the line. And that's how it is. And Kwesi found that out. And Chris Ballard is on the clock right now after the Anthony Richardson. Like, you can look at all these different teams who've drafted quarterbacks. I don't think Nick Caserio is not in any, that he's not in any trouble. They're a good team. But when you draft a quarterback in the first round, you're expected to develop him, and that's it. And if that quarterback doesn't develop, you better develop somebody else. You better come up with a plan B quickly. And Kwesi couldn't come up with a plan B quickly enough.
No, despite his best attempts, he couldn't come up with a plan B. But I'm going to tell you what, I know who's not a plan B. The name Lance Z is not a plan B. So happy to have you on the Move the Six podcast today. Looking forward to more chats, more conversation, more personnel breakdowns next week when you and I get back together to have two Move the Six podcasts next week. Until then, people, keep it locked on Move the Sticks. We're out.